Hello and welcome to the Brick Cave Media Podcast. My name is Sharon Skinner. I'm the author of Return to Honoria from Brick Cave Books. The Brick Cave Podcast is brought to you by the Brick Cave Book Club, Brick Cave Media's community portal for readers that love Brick Cave books and authors. You can join today and be part of the Brick Cave story at Brick Cave Media's new website, brickcave.media.
And my name is Bruce Davis. I'm the author of Gold Magic from Brick Cave Books. We're here tonight in the Brick Cave studio, located in the Brick Cave office in beautiful downtown Mesa.
Beautiful downtown Mesa.
It actually is rather beautiful.
It is. You know, and it's getting nicer every day.
Good.
Nicer every day. So it's International Podcast Day. And
I
we're
did not
doing
know
a
that.
Podcast. So let's talk about that. Bruce?
Yes.
So do you have any favorite podcasts, any podcasts that you listen to, and why?
Well, I do listen to the daily update from the Wall Street Journal because I don't subscribe to the Journal. I don't have access to it, so I find it interesting. I occasionally listen to the New York Times podcast when it doesn't make me sick to my stomach.
Okay.
Two of my favorite ongoing podcasts are Wicked History. It's a guy by the name of Mike Malloy, and he looks at some little-known historical things that occur going all the way back to the Roman Empire and Middle Ages, and everything is fair game.
Like example, please.
So he'll pick out. I fell in love with this podcast when he did an entire episode on the escape of the Alabama from Liverpool in 1861. I'm actually writing a novel about that. He'll take these kind of side incidents of history and then dissect them, put them in the context of the times. He did a very, very interesting one on historical Jesus. Okay. Without getting into the religion, he was talking more about Pilate and how he came to power and why he was there in the first place and what his actual goals were. So had Jesus come before Pilate, Pilate would not have thought much about it for more than a day or two because he was always getting these religious nuts brought before him.
Okay, so.
And really wanted very little to do with it. All he wanted was order. He didn't care.
Interesting.
Let the Jews fight it out amongst themselves as long as we keep order. He did one on why the lionization of the English archer in the 100 Years' War was both accurate and inaccurate, and how our impressions of what the archers could and couldn't do have been so distorted that it almost doesn't fit with what their actual tactical purpose was. So there's lots of, just these little things that are the kind of things in history that I just love.
And what's the name of it again?
Wicked History.
Wicked History. Okay.
And then there's a podcast, I cannot remember who does it. I'd have to look it up, on the history of Japan.
Oh.
And he's an expat American who lives in Tokyo, speaks fluent Japanese, and he talks about everything from the Meiji Restoration and the samurai period, right up through the Second World War. So it's kind of fascinating too.
Nice. Okay. That would be interesting, yeah. I mean, and I like oddball stuff like the Wicked History kind of stuff. Stuff that not everybody knows about and that you can kind of dig into the oddball stuff.
Yeah.
So my real go-tos right now for podcasts are, believe it or not, they're about writing.
Oh, gee, Sharon, who would have thought?
So my main happy podcast is #MWriting, hosted by KJ Delantonia and Jess Leahy with Serena Bowen. And I really enjoy it. They dig a lot into craft and marketing and launching books and just all aspects of the writing journey. And they're just entertaining. They're very entertaining. And the other one that I like to listen to, and it's in short bursts because it's a short podcast, is Writing Excuses, and that's the one with Dan Wells and Mary Robinette Cole, and Brandon Sanderson usually is on there, and Dong Wan Song has been on there lately. So they kind of switch it up, but it's the one where they say 15 minutes because you don't have time and we're not that smart. So so they're very entertaining, and they do fit a lot of really great writing content and craft information in a short 15-minute burst. So it's very entertaining, and they're very knowledgeable. So that's a fun one. And so those are really my two go-to. I listen to other podcasts here and there, kind of spotty, but those are my two go-tos on podcasts. But I didn't know until recently that there was an international podcast.
Yeah, I had no idea until you told me this evening.
Well, look for my social media post with a picture of you and I on it that talks about listen to our podcast. Because
it's International Podcast
we
Day.
do one, yeah. And I'm actually working with a friend of mine who's another book coach, and we are building our own podcast. So I'll be doing another podcast with someone else, and this will be all about coaching kidlit. So it'll be focused on the craft from the angle of kidlit writing and coaching of that. So I'm kind of excited about that. We're still building it. We didn't quite get it out in time for International Podcast Day this year, but it should be in full swing this time next year, so we can celebrate then.
Oh, goody.
Yeah. So, speaking of Kidlit, I just finished up facilitating a multi-day Kidlit Writing Conference, the SCBWI Arizona Regional Conference, and that was horribly stressful, but the content was glorious, and the faculty that we ended up having on it was excellent. And the closing keynote was pretty spectacular. It was Dan Santat talking about how he creates children's books, and he's just a fabulous creator and a fabulous person. So that was a really good conference. And I had all sorts of internet issues, so that was really stressful for me. But I have a great team, and the team just, they just picked it up and ran with it. And I had a great tech person who, they made it work, even though I was mostly sitting on an iPad somewhere freaking out. So that was entertaining. And then I have coming up for me the Young Writers Conference in October, hosted by a friend of ours, Dina Remiel. So she's got a Young Writers Conference that she's hosting, and I'll be one of 4 authors at that. So that's coming up in October. But other than that, I get to breathe a little bit this month. So now that I'm off the conference and I'm just showing up to present at somebody else's event, I could relax a little bit, which is really nice because I could use it.
Yeah.
Anything coming up for you?
I'll be going down to Tucson in November.
That's right. Yep.
I will be doing my talk on wounds and wound patterns in pre-industrial warfare and why the Romans had better medical care for their soldiers than the Civil War. Very pithy kind of, geeky history. I just was at the virtual CocoCon,
right,
the first part of the month. We talked about that a little bit when we were up at the roadside. And it was, I thought, quite successful. There were some issues with the Discord client that they decided to use for a lot of the presentations. Once you got it working, it was pretty good. I had some interface problems, and I'm still not sure what that was. But I'm struck by the ability or the potential for hybrid cons. where you would still have the in-person experience, which I think is something that's not well done with the virtual con. Even though we had the con suite, virtual meetup place, it's not the same as just kind of wandering around and talking to people.
Yeah, we had a lobby, and the lobby had a bunch of little breakout rooms at lunchtime, so you could just go mingle with various people in the digital lobby, but it really isn't the same.
Yeah, there's a spontaneity to face-to-face interface that you just don't get in any kind of virtual environment. But then again, the ability to draw in a wide variety of people who may not be willing or able to travel to your con, but could give up an hour of their time from home, I think is a tremendous potential that can be tapped.
Yeah, see, for the Children's Book Writing Conference, the challenge, it's always a challenge to do it in Arizona because we have to bring in faculty, and most of the faculty doesn't live
in Arizona.
Anywhere near Arizona. Most of them live in New York, or that general vicinity.
Right.
And we have to, fly them in, and then you have to lodge them and everything. But on the other hand, with all of the issues that I had with the internet, and we had some of our moderators who froze up and weren't sure how to, so the co-moderator would have to take over. We did it on the Zoom platform, which it wasn't designed to do what we were trying to do, but we were able to make it work with some help. But the challenge being that if you're doing it digitally, you don't get that same interpersonal, you don't get to bump into somebody or have lunch with them or talk, or pitch an agent because they happen to be by the, sitting out by the pool or whatever. So that's a challenge. Although I just didn't care for the digital version.
I understand that, and I had some, like I said, I had a few interface issues. On the other hand, the 3 times now that I've done it, the experience for me as someone presenting a talk as opposed to an interactive panel wasn't that different.
You see, and I find that if I'm talking on Zoom and it's like a webinar and you can't see any audience reaction, and I'm all about that reaction when I'm presenting, so it guides my,
one of the things I found comfortable about Discord was that unlike Zoom, it's a little bit easier to kind of unmute yourself and make a comment or ask a question. Zoom, for some reason, that interface doesn't lend itself to it as easily. Question and answer is fine. You almost need an in-person moderator, a moderator that handles it. Discord worked really well for people just spontaneously asking questions.
Yeah, I don't know that I like that so much either. I don't know. Because if it comes unexpectedly in the middle of what I'm presenting, it just feels awkward. I don't know. I don't like it as a presenter. I liked it fine. I like the idea that you can record some of the sessions and that people can watch them later and you can rewatch them, and that's a nice thing. But,
Well, the other thing I liked is that it's easy to be anonymous. You can kind of poke your head in and see if anything's going on that you're terribly interested in, and nobody really notices that another face has appeared. It's not the same as opening the door and going into a room and everybody looks at you. It's like,
Yeah, especially at the small cons when there's only 3 people in the audience and they're just dying for fresh blood.
Right. So, I just think it's a potential